Like I'm looking at their stuff like, yo, this is insane.
Right.
So I'm sitting there looking through this book. And, I was 5 years old. I couldn't read all the stuff. So I made my own adventures. Apparently, Jesus was the main character who had superpowers. So I was going in there drawing little Jack Kirby superpower bubbles and stuff and everything. And you know that old school comic, like, you
Yeah.
see the powers, you see those little black little bubbles, like, and with all the sonic lights and everything. So I started drawing that, like Jesus can, destroy planets and, all kinds of craziness. So it spilled on to all the books that he left there. And I remember getting in trouble, but it was the most fun I ever had.
Right.
And it just from years after that, I would sit down in class because I went to, Catholic school in Brooklyn, St. Jerome, right off of Nostrand and Newkirk. And I wouldn't, nothing in class interest me. I would just sit there and draw characters. I had one particular character called Hurricane Man now this is early 80s, 1983, 84, and I'm drawing a character called Hurricane Man, and he's doing what I called, super hurricane blasts, which you kids today would see as a kamehameha. Like that was where my head was at. So I would just my character, and they would sit there like this.
Right.
And I guess maybe because at the time Street Fighter 1 was out and I remember the Hadouken, maybe that was the inspiration. I don't know.
Right.
But I remember doing all these crazy and once again getting in trouble because I used to put all these things in my science books and my history books, and and it was just a big old thing. And I just knew from there I wanted to tell stories. I just wanted to uh draw them and illustrate them and do all. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I was
Right.
a young black Haitian kid in East Flatbush, Brooklyn, in the early 80s. I had no idea what the resources were to do it. So I just started making it happen, you know.
Where'd you go to school at, man?
I went to, like I said, I went to St. Jerome, was elementary school up until 8th grade. Then I went to High School of Graphic Communication Arts in Manhattan,
Okay.
which I thought, because of the name and they had art classes, I thought this was going to be the art school because I didn't get accepted to art and design. A lot of my friends did, but I didn't. And ended up going there until my sophomore year because I got into so many fights, not realizing that if you remember, there's an old school gang here in New York, a very notorious gang. And that's why I say the hood is mad geeky, yo.
Yeah.
Like we're geeky as fuck. So the name of the gang was called the Decepticons. And my high school, it was so crazy because my high school was known as Cybertron. That's had no clue that this was a thing. And then so, they were just like, all right, well, you're getting into fights every day. Your grades are good, but your record's gonna get affected. And I ended up going to City as school
Okay.
in my sophomore year and graduated my junior year. So I didn't even go through senior year. I knocked out, went to school, knocked out everything. In fact, it's interesting. Big Cat came in, I think he got accepted to the school the month that I graduated.
Oh, okay.
Which is hilarious. Because when I told him I went to City as when we first met, way like damn near 20 years ago, and it was like, yeah, dude, I went to City as. I said, you mean the one in the Village on Houston? He was like, yeah, that's exactly the one. And he told me the dates, and I was like, dude, I graduated that month. Like, that's crazy.
You know what's nuts, man, is because I remember when I had Kasai and Afur on, and from my vantage point, like I'm not an illustrator, writer, or used to be a writer by trade, and it was so interesting running around with this group and observing all you guys. Because if I could jump forward for a little bit, at one point it just seemed like there was this huge clique of amazingly talented black and brown artists that all ran in the same crew. Right. And I try to explain this to people as a chronicler. I was like, you have to be sitting where I was sitting to see what I saw when I was hanging out with you guys. I'm like, we're talking about, and from my vantage point, the most talented group of people I've ever come across. Multi-talented, right? Different,
right.
Different levels.
Yeah.
But you were always someone that really struck me as very interesting because I could never place where we first met. But I remember hanging out with you and I was like, oh man, this brother's the truth. And I was like, you were having some type of philosophical conversation with Big Cat. It wasn't a debate.
Yeah. I think I kind of remember that day. I couldn't exactly tell you what day it was or the specific time,
Right.
I think you were working at the Starbucks in Astoria, not Astoria, and on Astor Place. I'm sorry.
No, I was.
Oh,
Oh,
you
that's
were
it.
used to
The
hang
CD
out there.
store. I was at the C. I worked at the CD store, Norman Sound and Drug.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
what it was. Norm, yes, Norms. I remember that, and I think that's exactly how it happened. I think me and Clarence had went over to get because that's what we did.
yeah,
This is the before the times of Spotify and Apple Music, and we actually went to a store to buy music.
right.
and, and I think, and the good thing was about Norms was that it wasn't just your regular, pop music. It was like real underground bootleg B-sides type stuff that
Yeah,
you really wouldn't, see, like the
yeah.
remixes to things. And so me and Clarence was like, yo, let's go over there and everything. And I think I met you in there and he introduced you, and then we just started
It's what-
talking, and we ended up going to the Starbucks on Astor Place.
yeah.
And we just chilled there for like I don't even ask me what we were talking about because I barely remember the last 2 years, so I couldn't tell you what we talked about that night.
Bro,
Like,
it's crazy, man, because that era in New York, I know everyone thinks their era in whatever city or state they grew up was amazing, but I think in the era that we came up, and I like to call it post Basquiat, like, influence,
right.
is those cats had already kind of laid down the black bohemian lifestyle. And
Hmm.
then, we're stepping into it next generation and then just
Hmm.
picking it up and kind of and running with it. Can I just hear about from you, man? What was it? What was your experience like in your like as a young adult mobbing around the village as a black man? Because back then the vibe we were carrying was not the vibe that most people found socially acceptable. It's cool now.
Well, yeah, yeah. It's what it was. I think there was an authenticity of finding yourself and being surrounded by genuine people, whether they were assholes, whether they were good people, but you got to see a face-to-face, interaction, as
Right,
opposed to now, you deal with people mostly through social media. I became friends with people without seeing or meeting them face to face, or for like talking to them online for years, and then we meet at a con, like, hey, what's up? And it's all good. But like back then, there was everything that we did was part of that. I guess you would call that culture. Coming out of your house, we all came from different parts of New York. We all
right,
came from different parts of the borough. So coming from Brooklyn, Clarence was already in Manhattan. You were there. You had other people coming from, Far Rockaway and all kinds of, and then the journey to get to the one spot,
right.
whether it was Tompkins, whether it was Washington Square, whether it was, the Starbucks on Astor, what we used to call the studio, because that's where all the artists went.
Yeah,
If we wanted like an afternoon and not be bothered by nobody, we'd just sit there, order one cup of coffee, and then just stay there for like until it closed and just draw all day. That's how it was.
folks, I'm telling you,
Yeah.
it's a sight, man. There was this one spot in the Starbucks where like it was probably the worst seating I've ever seen in any Starbucks, right? But there was one spot where it was kind of elevated slightly and a couch
Mhm.
and some chairs up there, and I would find these cats there not holding court, but I'm just talking about illustration books open. If you ever seen one of those things before, they take up a lot of table and like
Yeah.
just getting it in and creating, man.
It was crazy.
So let's start with where your professional journey
Mhm.
began. How did you get in? Because I actually went to one of your events after a
Mhm.
con. I was blessed to come.
Right.
I had just moved back to New York. I brought
I
both my little
remember.
kids down, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
got to see your gallery work, and it's absolutely amazing, folks. I'm gonna make sure I have all of Chuck's links so you can go support wherever he's at on the replay of this. But let's talk about how your professional journey started.
Um, I guess okay. So at the time, and it's funny going back to the time that you're talking about us being in that, there were a lot of artists that hung out with us, and a
Right,
lot of them have moved on to do a lot of different things. There was Kari Randolph, which is really still to this day a really good friend of mine who draws all kinds of amazing comics now, who's worked in, for Warner Brothers. He has a comic called Black with Kwanzaa Sajifo, and it's and then you also have people like LaShawn Thomas who
right,
create who worked on the Boondocks, and he used to hang out with us all the time, even though he was a little bit of a weirdo from time to time. But it was like, well, that's behind the scenes conversation. But it was awesome though, because as crazy as he was also a character, but he was also part of the crew, for a little time. And then you talk about people like Afua, who now is now doing professional comics.
Right.
It's crazy. So I was in a place where I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do with myself. And I just decided to go back to school. I remember I had a job working at a clinic doing security um, in the late 90s. And then just decided, I said, all right, you know what? I'm just going to go and finish my college degree, and I'll just get a degree in graphic design. And so I was ready, willing and ready to accept that. I was like, all right, this is it. This is it for me. I can't do this no more. I can't sit down and try and find work in the industry. It's blah, 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 back and forth.
Right.
And one of the professors that I had that was teaching flash animation, because the whole thing with the graphic design thing, it was like, oh, you got to learn how to do web internet stuff. And this is back in the day when stuff was still
Yeah.
HTML and coding, and I don't even know now. Thank God for Squarespace. Like I don't even know what I
Make
do.
it easy.
Exactly. Thank God for drag and drop and copy and
Yeah.
paste. Like I can't do this. So I had my professor was I don't know if you call him a professor. He literally took on this job because he was working at Nickelodeon at the time, was Aaron Augenblick. I
Okay.
don't know if you know Augenblick Studios. They have tons of animation that they do for Adult Swim. They've done a whole bunch of stuff and everything. And Aaron at the time was working at Nickelodeon, but he quit to open up his own studio.
Okay.
And in the meantime, he still needed another job. So he saw me drawing one day, and he was like, oh my God, like this is crazy. I was like, oh, thank you. He says, I have an animation studio, do you want to come and intern for me? I was like, fuck it, I've interned before, it won't be nothing new. So I didn't think anything would come from it. And I went there, and we started, and literally Aaron, if you go to Aaron's studio now, if you go to Augenblick Studios,
Right.
it's oh, like literally walking into a tech company. Like right
Oh,
now in 2022, it's like he's got like two floors, a whole floor for studio and a whole floor like administration, and he's just like, they're killing it. And but back then he was in a little small studio that, bruh, it looked like that part in old school 80s movies when it's like, yo, meet me by the docks in this place, in this warehouse. And it's all dark and fucked up. And you think like there's either going to be a murderer back there, or a
right.
skinwalker, or Chud. Like, I don't know what the fuck. Like, that's how bad his whole thing looked. And it was dusty concrete everywhere, with like just like a few, and it's which is funny because it's actually where I never really was a smoker until I started working over there. But like it was like it got so crazy, and it was like this hole in the wall. And the thing that I did love about it was from the ground up. Like, he had nobody else working there except two other animators who came from um Nickelodeon with him. His boy Frank Suarez. He had a couple of other people. I think his friend Joy. They all came together to make this whole thing happen. And for all the years of that happening, to see where they're at now is absolutely unbelievable. But from there, I did so much work for him that when he started getting paid really, you know, big gigs, like, he would just say, "Hey, look, I'm just going to hire you as a full-time animator." And I learned everything from animation just interning there. Like, I had an idea of what it was. I already knew how to do character designs. I already knew how to do comic pages, but the actual art of animation itself, I learned when I was over there.
Wow.
So, I got to put it into actual practice and get paid for it, which allowed me to go and get work in other places. I worked for Animation Collective, Nickelodeon, pretty much any and every studio that existed in New York at some point, I did work for. So that's where, that whole thing happened. But despite all of that, I felt that I wasn't satisfied with just doing other people's work.
Right.
I wanted to do my own stuff. So I started making up characters, started animating, and writing stories on my own. And and that's really where the journey really began, because once people saw what I was doing with my own stuff, then I got work from other people saying, we want that kind of style. Because sometimes when you work in the business, you have to leave yourself to be very versatile to, like, you know, different styles. Like, I may draw characters that look like anime, but then somebody that I work for is like, no, everybody gotta look like SpongeBob SquarePants. And I'm like, like, all right, fine.
you
you know,
you paying for it.
word. I'm like, I came here to draw Goku. Nah, you're gonna draw this boxy ass motherfucker. Like, this is what so yeah, that's where that came in, and then the rest is pretty much history. Even up until now, I'm still doing some work, freelance work. I've worked recently. I've done work with Kevin Powell. Can't
Mhm.
talk about what we worked on because NDAs and all that nonsense.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Um, I'm working on a particular project that's probably going to get pitched to a major company. I don't know what's going to happen until I hear word, but it all of these things just start to happen the more work I started doing on my own stuff, because a lot of the clients I get, it's like, I saw what you did with Bounce, or I saw what you did back in the day with DSX and all this other stuff, and we want it to look like this. And I'm like, "Oh, then pay me and let's get it going." Like, that's
You
it.
can have that. You can have that if you give me that money a little bit more than they gave me, maybe a lot more.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's crazy to think about, man, because so when I was hanging out with all you guys, I'm sure you remember the apartment in Queens, which has gone down in history, the Bohemian flat
Yes,
in
yes, it was.
Astoria. Shout out to the people who are actually paying rent. Thank you for allowing a young brother to stay there for so long.
Yep.
Um, I learned watching firsthand from you guys how hard that industry is to break into. I think people have this misnomer, or this weird cognitive belief that comics and everything around it, like animation, that all it takes is for you to be good and then you're
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
And watching you guys grind was insane. Did you ever work at the asylum with Caesar and those guys, or I can't remember if you did?
No, I remember at one point when I first met Caesar, it got, shout out to Caesar because that's
Shout
my
out to
dude, man.
Cesare, man.
That, interesting fact, this Rob Zombie behind me is the last of Art Asylum.
Whoa.
Yeah, that is the last. Like, the only reason why it's here, I even forgot I had it. I went to go see my mom a couple of weeks back, because she had like some minor surgery. So I just went to go check in on her. And I went to my basement and I was just looking through old stuff that I had there, and I had found this box with like all this old action figures and everything else, and I saw like this thing. I was like, what the hell? Why is Alan Moore in my fucking box? But then I was like, nah, that's Rob Zombie. And so I took him out, and I was like, it was dusty as all hell. He had cobwebs and everything all over him. And then I looked at it and I was like, holy shit, this is the last of. And I remember Caesar, actually, because I wanted it, because I was at a con with him, and I was like, yo, dude, I really want that. And he was like, yo, I got you. I'm gonna save it for you and everything. And that was the last of it. There was like, and it's interesting because like I still talk to Caesar, obviously, but I still talk to Digger, which is from like Art Asylum. It was like the Tommy Lee of the toy industry. Like,
for a little context for folks, what Chuck and I are talking about is the asylum was a place, and I'm just going to give it the respect it deserves, where artists, illustrators, and sculptors came together and they made sculptures, some of the most detailed representations of your favorite characters. And our good friend Caesar, who worked there, was a guy who's amazingly talented, man. That
so
dude
good.
is insane. And it was just a beautiful thing to watch these brothers work. More about you, though, man. we got to talk about Bounce, but I want to make sure that I make the most of my time in this. So another thing that I did want to discuss with you is the martial arts aspect, right? Now, you're a man who lives an urban legend a bit, right? So I'm not going to bring up some of the things I've heard. It's almost like Bruce Leroy levels.
Oh my God, who the hell is telling you this? Because I don't remember it going down like that.
But because it's relevant to Bounce, man. So Let's
Mm.
talk about the martial arts, man. How long have you been into the martial arts? What did you
Oh
practice? What did you
man.
study, man?
The only two martial arts I've ever practiced my whole life was judo and karate. That was it. And
That's all you need.
yeah, I mean, I dabbled in kung fu for a little bit because I did have, when I was doing karate, I did have like a really horrible knee injury. To this day, it kind of affects me. But
Right.
and I didn't want to stop training at the time. So a friend of mine had suggested to take Tai Chi,
Okay.
which I did. And I found, and I learned Tai Chi, not just the meditative aspect of it, or but actually how to apply some of it, you know, in an altercation, which was some of those things. But it was, you know, it's very interesting to see the kind of times that we're in right now, because I never really I never thought I applied most of my way. I applied more of the philosophical aspect of martial arts than the physical,
Okay.
you know, and that's what meant more to me than anything. It was some of the things that I would get into, I always regretted that I it came to that.
Wow.
Like it was always, you know, I and it's crazy because I was talking about this with my girlfriend yesterday. And in light of the slap that was heard across the world, craziness that happened the other day. And we were talking,
Perfect
I was
form.
talking about,
Perfect form. It
say what?
was perfect form. That smack
Oh
was
yeah, that smack was, he knew what he was doing when he went up there. I mean, come on, the guy has been training for a minute, doing all of the crazy stunts that he does in movies. Of course, he has perfect form. Like I was like, I was like, okay, Will. And this is how you know, that Chris wasn't ready. Chris was so comfortable in his space, he had no defensive stance.
no, no.
None.
He dropped back a little bit afterwards, but it was so quick. Chris was still
Yep.
smiling after the smack. Now I don't know if
Exactly.
I was like, I'm about to get paid, or like
Listen, it was one of those things where he didn't realize. He's like, I think Will is about to hit me. And then it happened. And then he was like, that really did happen.
yeah.
He didn't even, by the time he thought about it, it happened. Like that was a wrap.
It's the
But
reaction that most people of color when they were kids, when your mom smacked you, it was like, oh man, she did
oh
that
yeah,
right in front of the school, like
that's
everyone.
yep, that's what it was. But despite all that, because we can talk about
Yeah.
that nonsense all night. But um it for me, you know, I that's the kind of moment that I wanted to always avoid.
Right.
Unfortunately, with my luck, it didn't go down that way. So, you know, certain things. And there were situations where, you know, I was just happy to make it out alive. And I was like, you know, there was one. Now, here's the most martial arts thing I've ever done in my life without having to without having to lay a finger on anybody. Long story short, there was a dude who, you know, I used to work at a bar in Rivington called St. Jerome, and
Mm,
this is in the Lower East Side, and this isn't too far away from the hood. Like this
right.
is, the projects are not too far away.
Les.
Yep. And there was a dude who was walking down the street, you know, like Eddie Murphy usually say, walking down the street, mind his own business. And he had his bags, like he just came from the grocery store, and there was a group of hipsters just, you know, doing all kinds of craziness, getting drunk and getting rowdy and everything. And they were across the street, and one of them was talking a whole bunch of crap, bumped into the guy with the bags, and the guy, and one of the bags fell on the floor, and you heard like glass break.
Oof.
And I was like, oh. And all credit to my boy Dom, who was DJing that night. Dom is literally the most interesting person that I've ever met working at the bar, because he is built like Wolverine, looks like Wolverine. He's Filipino, but was born and raised in Mississippi, so he has the biggest Southern drawl. Like it's amazing. I love Dom. Dom is great. So like Dom is outside having a cigarette, and you know, we're watching what's going on, and the dude was like, yo man, you ain't gonna apologize for, you know. And the dude looked at him like, man, fuck you, blah blah blah, and everything else. And I was like, oh damn. He was like, word, this what's going on, I'll be right back. And you, right, you know, in the hood, when the motherfucker be like, I'll be right back, you don't be there. Just don't be there. I was like, you know, what the hell? So he came to the and then Dom looked at me and says, yo, man, I bet you all them motherfuckers gonna come over here right now. And I was like, nah, they ain't coming here. And they walked across the street, came to the bar. And the only reason why I let them in was because the bartender came out and said that he was expecting them. And I pulled the
Okay.
bartender to the side and I said, listen, this thing just happened. He says, no, 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 it's all good. I know he gets a little crazy at times. Don't worry about it. He'll be fine. And so I pulled the dude on the side that bumped into him and says, yo, man, listen, I saw what happened across the street. I'm gonna need you to take that down while you're in here. Okay. And he was like, no, man, I'm all good, man. You know, that guy, he just wasn't watching where he was going. I was like, technically, you weren't watching where you were going. He was fine. And he's like, man, fuck that guy. No, I'm fine. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, bro. I got this. All right. So a few hours go by and I'm standing outside. Now, this is Thursday night. So, everybody who comes out to the bars usually, after a certain time, like after around 2 a.m., nobody's really out. So,
Yeah.
it's still, school day. So I'm standing outside. I'm having a cigarette, and this brother comes, the same brother who his stuff fell on the floor. He says, "I'll be right back." He comes dressed all in black, and I will say this, and this is the thing I love about us. My man's understood. He said, "Yo, man, I ain't got no beef with you, man. I know you're only doing your job and everything, but I need to go in there and handle something."
Oof.
And pulled his jacket over, and I was like, "Well, this is where you got to use all your shit, everything that you've ever learned in your head." I said to him, I said, "Bro, listen to me, man. We got cameras that are on you right now. Do you really think that that dude inside is worth this?" And not for nothing, I told him, "Say, I totally appreciate what you're saying. I'm not sitting out here. I ain't gonna get in your way, but I'm just saying, do you really think that it is worth the trouble? You're gonna have to hide in your crib. We got cameras there. The first thing they're gonna do is they're gonna see you. You don't got nothing on. You don't got no hat on. You don't got nothing, and they're gonna see me.
Well,
So what do you really want to do, bro?" And he goes, "Yo, I ain't gonna let him disrespect me like that." I says, "Yo, I get you, but not here. Just not here." And then he says, "Listen, I know he's in there. I'm gonna stay up the block, but I feel you. And you know what? I'm out. Thank you." And I was like, and I was like, "All right, man, bro, just be safe, man, and just think about what I said." And he was like, "All right, cool." And he went up the block. Let me tell you, the sigh of relief.
I bet.
I had to check my pants like
I
several times because I was like, "Ooh, boy."
I bet, man.
But that is like, to me, that is like the true form of being in the face of danger like that, and then being able to just literally talk to somebody logically. I
Yeah.
mean, there is that, don't get me wrong, there are people out there that you see it in their eyes, there's no getting through to them. It's a wrap.
Yeah, that's it.
But in this particular case, me being able to meditate this in my own head and just say, okay, this is not one of those situations. This is not a kind of situation where I have to, do some physical or stand up like I'm an alpha male. Don't come up to me with that. No, no, no. This is not. In fact,
Yeah.
that's never the time to use any of that nonsense. Because that's
No.
what it is. It's nonsense.
Yeah.
So,
This is real life we're
this
talking
is
about, right?
exactly, like at the same time, is that whack ass piece of shit hipster, as much as I can't stand him, he doesn't deserve to die. And this
Right.
brother don't deserve to get, you know, his whole life changed because of it, that hipster's bullshit, and because of a bad decision he made when he was upset.
Right.
So being in the middle, I had to make that call. You know, could I, usually people would be like, "Oh, yeah, call the cops on him. He's going to be up the block." And blah. No, 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 no. Conversation was had. It- the hood. This is how we work. There's no,
Right.
none of this like, oh, I just got into the thing with the guy. I'm going to call the cops on him right now. We don't do that. We don't do that
Yeah.
here. But that was an instance like many, that I've gone through working the bar. I remember, I don't know if I'll have time to go into this, but I remember, having to not kick out, but subdue a a green beret and a crew of witches.
Wait, let me just interject for a second, folks. You
Yeah,
remember when we
but go
started
ahead.
the show? I was like, I named some attributes. I said philosopher, martial artist, right, and peacekeeper. And he denied being any of those things, but I have it on good authority because what you didn't know about me, Chuck, was I was always around. That's why they
Yeah, I
call me
know,
King.
I
I
know.
was like, I was always in the background smoking a cigarette and like watching
Yep,
like
yep.
like, like we can do it if we want, but if if Big Cat and Chuck are just chilling, there's no reason for my little thugged out ass to get involved in any shit. They obviously have peacekeep it, but please remember, philosopher, protector, defender. Continue your story, my brother.
Oh, I mean, dude, it just, and I think that's what the whole thing about working the door. Like, and long story short, with the Green Beret dude, it was just a group of older guys.
Right,
There was a player that was playing across the street from one bar that I worked at where it was about, post-traumatic stress disorder. And they had all came from there, and they were all part of the whole cast.
right,
And so they came through, it was a Sunday afternoon. Nobody was at the bar. They literally had the whole bar to themselves. And we have a separate room in the back where people can play pool, darts, and all kinds of stuff. And I just remember going back there and seeing them wrestling each other off the floor. Now, I'm not talking about like some playful, like, yeah. No, none of that. I'm talking about like WWF style, aggressive, you want to come out here and run your mouth kind of like stone cold machismo craziness mixed in with like actual collegiate wrestling moves being done on the floor, shirts are off and everything. And I'm like, whoa. Now I have to go back here and tell these people to stop. And these motherfuckers can kill me 5 ways till Sunday with just a pencil. Like, this is like a crew of like 50-year-old Jason Bournes.
yeah.
What the hell? Like, I can't.
It's a
So
different type of danger. It's a different type of danger.
I'm like, nah, this is not, I ain't no way I'm walking from this okay. But I had to literally, once again, I had to talk to him. And it and there's not even a way, like, I don't describe this as like the whole quote unquote alpha, because apparently this is a new thing now. Being
Yeah.
an alpha male. I don't know what the fuck that shit is about, but it's basically asserting, like, I'm going to tell you that you can't do a particular thing.
Right.
My responsibility of being a bouncer is that if I tell you this and there's a problem, I have to take care of it. And I have nothing against you.
Right.
But that's how my demeanor was, when I went back there to talk to him. Meanwhile, in my chest, I'm like, oh, I'm going to die today. And then, like, but at the same time, I had to do, because it's my responsibility.
Right.
And yeah, that's and they eventually they calmed down. They were all good. I think their commanding officer was there, came, say, hey, stop giving him trouble, man. He's been nothing but good to us when we got in here. And it was just like, all right, cool. They all apologized before they left. And yeah, it was a whole bunch of craziness like that.
Man, it's crazy too because in regards to you, right? So I've always followed, man. I remember going to a couple of comedy clubs with you guys. And I was young. I think I took that for granted how much younger, or how much younger I felt comparatively to you guys,
Right.
because of the stuff you guys into. I'm like skateboarding, going to raves, and I'd meet up with you guys like we're going to a jazz festival. Then we might
Yeah,
get oysters afterwards. You
exactly.
down? And I'm like,
Exactly.
I'm down.
all these large black people, like, yo, we're gonna go and sit down and go to Cafe Wa and vibe off some funk. Would you like to join us? Like, that's what it was.
I'm like, yeah, I gotta sober up a little bit. Doesn't sound like my normal event.
All good. You know?
Let's talk about before we, because I want to save the largest segment for the amazing work you're doing now. Let's talk about Artist Alley. Let's talk about people of color in the industry. Let's talk about your experience. What has it been like for you? Because I framed that question with this, right? There are a lot of people out there with a conversation of race bending characters, or should we create new characters for representation? And I always find this conversation extremely funny because I'm like, I know people of color who are creators.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I just want to hear from your vantage point, not for controversy.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
What do you think about that whole topic?
Well, there is I think the culture is now beginning to shift. But if you asked me the same question maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I
Right.
would say I would probably give you a different answer. But now, as it stands, I think more people are realizing what companies are doing. They use buzzwords, they use trends to market themselves. So if there is a Black History Month, they will say, "Oh, well, we got Black Panther. Look, we got Black Lightning. Look at Miles Morales. Look at Storm." It's just like it's just So okay, I
Yeah.
get it. This is not only are going to introduce you to Storm, but now she got a woman lover, and now she came out the closet. Or we're gonna introduce you to Black Lightning, but Black Lightning, he's not just Black Lightning anymore. They them, And
Yeah.
look, I got all love to the LGBTQ community because I have a lot of friends who are in the community and everything else. But at the same time, it's like even they have told me it's like, yeah, there is some sort of that. However, I don't have a problem with race bending or gender bending any characters. I think this is just what they are. They're characters.
Okay.
They don't exist in real life. They're not they're allowed for you to be played with like that. You can sit down and say, I'm going to do a female version of Superman that is gay. I can do that because this world is a fantasy world, and there's nothing wrong with telling that story from that perspective and getting a someone who is a lesbian or a gay writer to just say, "Hey, look, I'm going to write this. We're going to draw it. It's going to be a fun story, and my people are going to understand it." I don't see anything wrong with that. But the real question isn't about that. The real thing is the one thing that has plagued this country since its inception is white male supremacy. It's just the fact that they cannot see themselves in the stories that we do.
Mm.
For example, everything you just brought up when it comes down to, oh, I'm getting tired of all this inclusive nonsense and this diversity stuff. And, you're pandering to fans and blah, 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 blah. Okay. It says, well, go make your own stuff. We go and make our own stuff. Where am
Right.
I in it? I don't see myself in your characters. This is bullshit. Your story sucks. No one fucking asked you. You
Right.
literally told me to go make my own. So now that I'm here doing it, it's a problem for you. The companies were doing it. It was a problem for you then. I'm doing it on my own. It's still a problem for you. What the fuck do you want? Just say that you don't like certain people. It's easier to just say,
Just
I
come out.
don't like these particular people
Right.
rather than come and hide behind all of these excuses.
It's
Just say
crazy.
that. Like, it's just,
No, yeah, that's real right there because it's crazy. I know Mantis is probably he's my co-host on Fanboy Modeling School, good friend of
Mhm,
mine. You would know him if you saw him. We get into this debate all the time.
mhm,
And before he starts bombing my chat, well, what about what you said last week, Steve? I want to be
mhm,
clear on my point.
mhm,
I'm against it only because I want to see characters that exist be
mhm.
big up, and I want to. And if you're gonna do it, I've always said this. Please make it make sense, right?
Oh
Just
no, absolutely. Yeah.
make it make sense. But as a person, as a brother who's in this industry, man. Now, if I can ask you, what was it like getting into the industry? Because that's a different vibe. That's a different vibe, man. I know that people get
Yeah.
shelved, they get pushed into projects they didn't want to be
Yeah.
a part of. What was your experience?
I mean, my experience was I guess you can say that because of who I was, I didn't allow certain things to fly,
Okay.
which is the reason why a lot of my work in the industry is contracted work. Like I'm in there working for you for like 6 months and I'm out. I ain't dealing with this shit.
Right.
Like some of the things, look, and there wasn't much of us in there. And the ones that looked like me or you
Right.
were trying so hard to get to certain positions that they wouldn't even acknowledge that I was in the room.
Wow. It's a real thing.
So it's a real thing to see that. And I don't hate them for it. This is capitalism. It's the competition based culture that we grew up in. So I'm not gonna say that they should have, like, they don't owe me shit. Like I don't, it's whatever.
Right,
But
right.
I saw it for what it was, which is the reason why I had to say to myself, which is a very hard decision to do, to say that I love doing a particular thing. and that happens to be animation, that happens to be comics and everything else, I need to do it in a way where I don't lose the love for it. I don't lose the love for it because of people, because of burnout, because of all these other things.
Right.
Because of the racism that exists and some of the misogyny that exists in the business, I have to be able to do what I love and pick projects. If it's not mine, pick projects that I think are really good, even though the pay may be a little lower, but I'm proud to work on.
Okay.
You know, I'm not going to sit there and just go ahead and say, hey, let me just, take this one I've done that where I've taken a gig and be like, oh, fuck it, this money and everything else, and I see the end result, I'm like, I wish I never worked on that shit. Like it got to that point. So seeing all of that stuff, I used to, yeah, because of who I was, and I don't know if that demeanor, affected how people viewed me, but I'm not the person that's gonna sit there and we're gonna go to an after work event, and we sitting there listening to Biggie, and then the moment the N word drops, and then it's like, you say it too. It's like, but we're friends, right? No, motherfucker, we not. Like, just ain't go. What you not gonna do is think that we're that cool.
Right.
So it was one of those things, and a lot of the things that people, I see a lot of stuff, discussions on social media about, people in the workplace. We dealt with that shit way back in the day.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where, you needed the job, you dealt with it, but also that boss or whoever you worked for knew that you wasn't the one. You
Yeah.
did your job and you did what you had to do, but you wasn't the one to go fuck with. And he'll go run and yell at the next brown or dark skinned person that's working in the office. But he knew you wasn't gonna take that shit. And and I think I was the one. And I think there's only been one instance where I think I was crazy nice to everybody at the studio until one thing happened. And I was like, I said, excuse me,
Yeah.
and went off and came back in. And they did this whole thing about, like, oh, we're sorry with the way that things happened and everything else. It was a crazy situation. And I just said, oh, I mean, you keep you sorry, man. I'm out. No, but we really know I'm leaving now. Fuck it, 2 weeks. Everything else,
Wow.
the whole 2 week notice thing is an illusion. Don't believe that. If you don't like your job, just leave that shit right now.
Period.
At
That's
that
a good
moment,
point.
period. Because companies don't give you the courtesy. The moment they lay you off, they literally tell you the day of. They're like, hey, by the way, your whole department is gone. Sorry. And then these motherfuckers knew for months that they were going to lay off this department. They ain't going to give you that. Why the fuck should I give it to any corporation? So no, I was gone. I was out. Like, we're not doing this. So I just decided to just bet on myself and then just do freelance,
Okay.
and do work for other people. That way it gave me the freedom to be able to look at projects that I think meant something, that had a great story to tell or a positive message or something that I would love to be a part of.
Right.
And I wasn't confined to, oh, well, I guess I can't work on this because my contract states that I can't work for anybody else because I'm a slave to this fucking corporate job. Like, no,
Right.
I'm able to just go ahead and give my art to them and make something good. So
No, and someone in the chat said, and I agree, it paid off, man, because the questions I asked, man, believe it or not, I have a process, and I wanted to make sure that people got a whole holistic view of the brother that I'm talking to. Once again, it's your boy Steve, real name, no gimmicks, conversations that matter. I'm here with the creator of Bounce, amazing web series comic, and let's get into it. Let's talk about Bounce. Let me tell you, I was in California. Yeah, in Cali. Hadn't talked to you in a few years, man. I remember I was like driving somewhere and I seen you posted something. You're not very, very, very active at the time on social media. You would post some
Yeah.
stuff and it was just like about, some illustrations. You did some fast paced stuff. And I was like, dope. Hit the like button. Hope to see you again someday, brother.
Yeah.
But then you dropped the first preview of Bounce. And I remember reading it and I was dying laughing. And I'll folks, I'm not gonna steal it from it. It's a whole universe, man. I've been following closely, but I would say my favorite preview and installment of it was the two cokeheads
Right.
sitting in the bouncer's face. But let's talk about Bounce. How did that come to be? Tell the people about
Interestingly enough, that comic that you read is actually how it started, because that
it.
situation happened to me at the door 2 nights prior to me drawing that comic.
Oh.
Like, it was literally 2 cokeheads who were trying to come into the bar, who at one point used to be regulars, but they were so coked out of their minds that like I was like, nah, man, you guys, nah, get the fuck out of here. Like, we're done. Like, there's no it was and I think there was another situation, which is going to sound really fucked up. It's going to sound very misogynistic to a certain extent, but stick with this part till the end, because it's actually not what you're gonna think when I start telling the story. So there was the day that I came up with the concept for Bounce, I was standing at the door. There's this dude called Dave who's our local heroin addict. He's homeless and he was just there.
Right.
And look, the dude is like, I've got, like, over the years of working at the bar, I've gotten to know him personally. He's not a bad dude. He just made horrible decisions, got addicted to heroin, and he'll work for money. Like, he's one of those dudes, that when shit's going down, he'll run up and be like, yo, these motherfuckers are coming up the block, and then just run. Like, he's
Disappear.
thank God for him. Like, he's saved my life a few times. Like, but then sometimes when he gets high, he gets a little crazy. So there was a group of ladies who were coming into the bar,
Yeah.
and very, very attractive. One of them was very, very curvy, and her cleavage was out and everything else. And you know, he goes, I'm sitting there checking the IDs. I was like, hey, thank you very much. Have a good time inside and everything else. And he's standing right there, all like, oh, doing the heroin thing, and just standing there, like, yelling at the top of his lungs for no reason. And he looked at the girl and he goes, get out of here with your hairy titties. And I was like, and the girl was like, oh my God. Like, I was like, don't worry about it. I got him. No, don't. He's fucked up. I'm gonna talk to him. I got you. No, go. No, you go inside. And he comes up to me with the most, I've never seen a heroin addict very high have this moment of clarity. And he was like, but dude, we're all human. All of us have hair in our titties. And I was like, you know what? Get the fuck away from me, dude. Like, we're done. We're totally done. And I was like, which led me to believe, it was like, technically the human body is completely covered in hair. He is right. Fuck that guy. Like, and that's what he actually meant, which was hilarious to me. And I was like, so me and the other dude was sitting there, and we cracked up so much over this that I literally I got to the back for my break just to go eat some food. And I came up with 150 titles of every situation that I've ever been through working at the door. And wrote it as an outline and told myself, I'm making comic of all of these different scenarios. And so since I was a big fan of, like, all the old school, like, comic strips that used to be in the newspapers, like Calvin and Hobbes, Boondocks, Doonesbury, One Big Happy, like all of these cartoons I saw. I said I want to do something in the same format. I want to tell a cartoon, a comic strip where it's only 4 panels, and it's the beginning and you get to the end at the last panel, which was very challenging because I never did that before. But it worked because it came out so natural, because I actually lived the story that I was trying to tell. So it's like, okay, we're gonna go ahead and tell this story about this crazy UFC trainer guy that wanted to beat everybody up at the door. Like, we're gonna tell that story. Don't have UFC guys coming in and get drunk because apparently they want to fight everybody.
Yeah,
It was just like,
it's true.
it's just, yes, it's very, very, very true. Yeah, it was just like, I remember one time I had a guy told me that he can kill me by thinking about it. I was like, damn, bro. Like,
It's real Shang-Chi.
like looked at me. Now, here's the thing: this dude was Russian, and he was talking about like he was, look, I don't give a shit with any, and this is not me trying to sound messed up or anything else, and I apologize if I come off this way, but I am deeply afraid of diesel bald-headed Russian people that tell me they know how to do Krav Maga, because there is a tone in there that I know if this situation goes wrong, I'm not coming out alive. Like, this is not going to be. Like,
I've killed before I kill again. Like,
I've killed for less, and I'm like, God damn, bro. We were just talking about anime 5 seconds ago. Like, why we? How did we get here? Like,
but I think that's the thing that I know that's the thing that works really well for the comic, man, because it is based off of you, but it's you in these situations where I got to be honest with you, man. If you're okay with me talking about this, watching the love arc development and your character, that is no cap, man. That was probably the best storyline I've read in a while, man, where it's like he's a guy who has not problems with, like, has normal dating situations with women, meets the woman that he thinks he's supposed to be booed up with, and he's got a new female friend in his life who is wildly suspicious of this new woman. And I was just like, man, this translates so well. I remember the portion where your character got into peak physical shape, like he like just
in 3 days, in 3 days,
transformed.
Because he made the time nullification tool, which is something that I wanted to play with, because I wanted to play with a lot of absurdism in the whole in doing this. It was like, he was like, I can't lose my girlfriend. She likes diesel guys. All right, I need to figure out. So the man takes things from around the house, tinkers with it, creates a time nullification device, which 3 months is 3 days for everybody else. And he works out, comes back to work in 3 days, and he's diesel as shit.
I love the still frame because people are just looking at him in the background and like his normal friends are interacting.
Yeah.
Wait, I'd be a bad interviewer. Let's get the name of all the players. Let's get the name of the characters, please.
Okay, so since I'm a huge fan of Doctor Who, the bouncer has no name. He's called just the bouncer.
Yeah.
And then there his best friend, which is Yamaya, who when I introduced her, I think about several comics in, and I remember, and it was interesting because I remember creating that character, and during the whole love saga, and people were like, oh, they're gonna get together, and I was like, no, this is his best friend. They're best friends. This is the thing that I've realized that this is just me talking on some black shit. Like, us being able to be best friends with everyone. It's not just with boys and everything else, but you know what? You have a woman that's in your life who's not, you're not trying to get with, who's actually your friend, who gives you proper advice as a black dude. Like, you can, that actually speaks to you unhinged and give you the real.
Right.
And you respect that friendship enough to say, I don't like what you said, but you're right though. Like, it's just, and I wanted to introduce that because I felt that this was a thing that was lacking. Like, every time I saw any piece of black entertainment, it was like, you have, he's the black guy who's handsome, and she is the successful black woman who's, whatever. And they come together, and this whole thing is quirky, but they fall in love at the end. But where's the friendship between just regular people? Because life doesn't really work that way. This is a bunch of made up shit. So I actually wanted to change that narrative. So I didn't make her a love interest. That's his best friend. Like, they're not blood related, but that's, you could call them brother and sister. And the other characters, as far as the people that I made up in there, were all based on people that I actually know. Nord, who's the big diesel, bald-headed white dude, is based on a friend of mine called Spencer, who was a bouncer I used to work with that's from Sweden. So it was interesting to see his European take on the way that shit happens over here, which is hilarious. But except I made Nord in the comic from England,
Okay,
from
yeah, yeah.
London. And then there's his sister who then becomes the bouncer's actual love interest. She's Ife. She actually is the bouncer's equal on, there was one comic that I had of them, having a whole lot of sex to heavy metal music. Like, we ain't trying to put on Luther Vandross, we trying to put on Cro-Mags and some shit. Like,
Yeah.
we made it a point
Sepultura.
to Sepultura, and like, let's do this. Like, what album haven't we had sex to yet? Like, that's what, and this is what they do, and this is the
Right.
reason why they love each other. This is the reason why it works so well. Um, and then there's Nika, who's a trans woman who works the bar, and she just like is the no nonsense, like I'll fuck you up type person because of the way that she was brought up in the hood. But yeah, you have all these characters, and then a newer one that I introduced was Sylv, who's the actual owner of the bar.
Oh, good. Yes.
Yeah,
Talk about
yeah.
it.
Sylv. Okay, so a while ago in season 2 of Bounce, I introduced one of the owners, and he was like based on like a whole bunch of racist bar owners I used to work for, but I wasn't comfortable with the fact that, I made this dude to be like, I wanted it to be them work at a place where they feel very comfortable, which is the reason why they stay there.
Right.
So I retconned the whole thing by making the bouncer get into a situation where he quits the bar and starts to look for work in another place, and finds a bar that's owned by this black woman, and she's very bitter. Like, imagine, like, excuse me, Angela Bassett, but like, you know she was like a very downtrodden character from like The Color Purple. Like, it's just,
Right.
I mean, she went through shit in her life, and one of the things that I did was, with the bouncer who worked for her, she basically told him that, the bar was, they both, her and her husband owned the bar. Her husband was gunned down by the police off of some bullshit because the mafia was trying to like get money from him and everything else. And the bouncer just felt really bad, and he was like, "No wonder why you're such a fucking hard ass. Like, you just trying to keep this alive, and you miss your husband and everything else." And this is back in the 70s.
Right.
And then the bouncer just decides, one night in closing up, he gets totally wasted, falls asleep, wakes up at the bar, says, "Oh man, I gotta close," goes to the bathroom. And when he pushes the door open, it's 1971. It's the same bar.
Yeah.
So I don't want to ruin it, but he tries to kind of change the future. And he ends up hanging out with some of his heroes around from back in that era.
So yeah.
Yeah, and then he comes back, and some of the future has changed, but what he was trying to change didn't change.
Yeah.
So it was a very, I honestly, I put so much into that story that I couldn't finish it
Mm.
because it got to the point of thinking about, what if I can go back and change certain trauma that family members I had went through,
Right.
and maybe they wouldn't be the people that they are today, you know. But it took me a minute. Like, I think I got to a certain point and I stopped for like 6 months. I was like, I can't do the ending to this. So when I created Sylv, it was it was just me of retconning the whole thing, and then just them having a new owner who was, owned 3 different bars. So that gave me an opportunity to try to introduce new bouncer characters, if I wanted to.
Right.
And it was a very deep story. This was probably one of the deepest stories I had to write in doing Bounce. So yeah, those are that's the main core character, which is the bouncer, Yemaya, Ife, Nord, Nika, and Sylv. Those are the main ones.
Bro, just listening to you talk about it, my brother, like you can hear like there was probably a cathartic experience in fleshing all that stuff out, man. I've been dying to ask you this, man, and I know this is the thought that spurred on having you on the show. And thank you again for giving
Oh
up your
no,
time and coming on, man. I
no,
appreciate it.
thank you. I'm honored. Thank you for having me.
But I want to talk about the love interest arc, right? When
Mhm.
because the bouncer goes through this moment where he meets this woman, and I wanted to see how much art imitated life in this situation because this was very specific. He meets a woman, and it had all the makings for it to be an amazing relationship, but
Mhm.
it was still that thing. And then, well, why don't you tell what happened? What else?
um
Let me ask the question: was that based on your life? If you yes,
I would say about 61% of it was based on the situation that I went through.
okay, okay,
I will have you know that the person involved, we're still very good friends. It is funny because a lot of people are not friends with some of their exes. I actually am friends with
right,
some of my exes because you realize that you probably were at a particular point in your life, or the age that you were at just didn't work. Doesn't mean that person's bad,
right,
you know.
right.
Um, I mean, when there's some exes, I'm like, nah, fuck that, you're done. I mean, talking to you no more. Exactly. Like you're done. But it was one of those things where it was writing that whole arc was my therapy. It was a way that I dealt with it. And if you read that arc, it was not necessarily even about her. It was more like the bouncer's interpretation of what he should be to her and to himself.
No,
And there was a lot of self-reflection, which is like I did one of the Doctor Who things, like when every time the doctor changes into somebody else, he does the regeneration thing. It's always a
right,
big spectacle and everything else, and he regenerates from being the diesel bouncer to himself, to back
amazing
to
moment.
big belly, like dude. And and Yemaya's happy to see him again, and that was one of those situations where you know sometimes when you go through a breakup, you could sit there and talk about how then demonize the ex as much as you want, but then you also have to put the reflection on yourself. It's like, how did I behave? What
Mm,
did I go through? How did I change myself? Did I learn from it? Did have I moved on properly from it? And I tell you, after I finished that comic, when I tell you the amount of weight that was lifted off my shoulders, it was like I
right,
got that out. I was able to self-reflect, and just writing the dialogue for it, I was able to take a reflection, into myself and say, "Oh, there were some things that maybe I did wrong and that doesn't make her a bad person because, certain things just don't work out. Maybe it doesn't make her a bad person because we don't see eye to eye on certain things,
right,
So that one was very specific on that level. Um Other ones that I've done with the aspect of the time travel thing was just it was basically the same thing. It was me trying to process certain people in my life that, and especially in family, that weren't around anymore,
right,
and that never worked through their trauma, that never were able to you know have that moment. It's like, if I could go back and do that thing again, what would I do
right,
different? And would it change? Would it you know change the life that I have now? Would I be working this kind of job? Would be with this kind of partner, or whatever the case is? But that's where the whole thing came into play for me.
right,
One of the true inspirations from this was just delving deep into emotion and surrealism, because half of the things that I go through, when I used to work at the door, some of it was very surreal.
yeah,
Like, I couldn't even understand what I was looking at the time. I'd just be like, "Wait, what?" So it's like trying to, like, pair up your life, your actual real life, to these situations that happen. And that's the reason why I start off every comic strip as like, I want the reader to know that you don't know what you're gonna get at the end of this strip,
right,
because this is the same way that I work the door. I have an interaction with somebody. I don't know how the fuck it's gonna go down. It could end positive, it could end negative. Like, I don't know what's happening when this motherfucker comes to the door. It could be like, hey man, how's it going? It's having a nice day. By the way, slap you in the face. You're like, what the hell? Like, it's just, you don't know what's gonna happen. You don't know
I
what's gonna
tell you,
happen.
we're vibing. Someone in the chat just said, I can't wait to read this. I'm telling you, folks, man. I'm gonna put the links in. Go check out the archive. Before we wrap, my brother, I just want to say that it's amazing, man. And I know you got some stuff you can't talk about. I hope one of those things includes like praying on it for real, that we get to see a live action or like an animated version of that played out, man. Do you anything like that in the pipeline, man? Anything? Break the
Um,
NBA. Come on, man.
no, look, listen, if that was the case, I would have even I would you would be one of the first people to know. Like the
Right.
crew would know.
Mm.
I'm trying though. I'm trying. It's very hard to see. The thing about this particular story is that it's not have you watched Atlanta at all?
I've just started watching it. Yeah.
Okay. There is a key aspect of storytelling, and I think Donald Glover deserves a lot of respect for this because this is exactly how I would approach doing an animated series for Bounce.
Right.
It's very personal comedy drama with an aspect of surrealism and absurdism that pushes the story along, that anyone watching it can emotionally have a connection with it. And the thing about these characters and all these situations are very real things, because it's like, this is something that, if you think about the concept of a bar, you think about the concept of going out with your friends and drinking, think about how many nights you've gone and done that, and all kinds of truth have been revealed because everybody's inebriated,
Right.
everybody's you know in a space where they're like, you know it's the culmination of everything. I've watched first dates, I've watched breakups, I've watched job promotions, I've watched every possible wedding engagements, wedding proposals. I've seen them all at the bar. And I've gotten to see them from every perspective. I've gotten to see a wedding proposal by two people who genuinely love each other, and the people in the back that are hating on it. Because I gotta observe everybody.
Yeah.
Um, so to do something like that, and portray that in an actual show format is a very challenging thing. I could do it, via comics, but it's something that I'm trying to work on doing. I had a couple of opportunities. I won't go into some of these things, but some of the suggestions, people would be like, "This is a really great idea," pitch sessions. This is a
Yeah.
really great idea, but what if they were bouncers by night, but hunted down like
Vampires.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, no, we ain't here for that shit. We ain't here
It's
for that. It's like,
it's the realism, man. And it's funny because I'm just saying to you, man, that reading it as it has developed, man, like has been amazing. And I'm a person who enjoys universe building, but I enjoy that realism where even though we're watching a character go back in time and try to deal with things to reverse something that happened in the past, that moment when the bouncer self-actualize, like when he, the actualization moment and he
mhm,
reverts back into himself, that entire panel of him having that moment with himself, that was some of the best writing I've ever read. And I was just like, this is good. I remember
dude,
no
don't
joke.
say that, man. You gonna make me cry, bro. Don't do
I
that.
had to I had to put my phone down for a second because I was like, that was good. That was really, really good, man. So I just want to give
Yeah,
you that, that shout out right
that
there.
was yeah, that was very. I think that was actually a letter to myself. Like, it
Yeah.
was it. You literally sometimes, when you do certain things in life, whether it's a relationship, whether it's love, whether it's a job promotion, or you make a decision to change certain aspects of your life, you always have some kind of inner dialogue with yourself. And if you can't be real with yourself and ask yourself real questions, then who else can you be real with? Really?
True.
Like, it's just because it all starts with you. It all starts with, the things that you go through in life, and you have to take an honest look at things. And I think this is what a lot of people don't do, because it's very easy to pin particular circumstances on other people. It's like, oh, this didn't work out. I didn't get this job because this motherfucker tried to screw me over and everything else. That could be true. But there is a point where you have to do some self actualization to say, okay, you know what, that person did screw me out of their job. They did do what they did, but maybe I need to do you know, some inner soul searching and say, I can't allow myself to be in that situation.
Right.
I'll make my best effort to not be in that situation anymore, or not find myself in that situation. And if I do, I have to make a conscious thought on how I'm going to handle it. And I think that whole part in the panel, I think it was like maybe 3 or 4 panels when I did it. It gave me the opportunity to actually tell myself, you know, what I was dealing with, what I could have done wrong, how I'm going to see myself now, and what I'm going to continue being the person that I am, because there's nothing wrong with who I am.
Mm.
You know, there's nothing like, you let like a bunch of different things come into your life that tells you that you need to be this way. You want to get this job, you do this. You want to get with that person, you do that. You want to do like you let all these outside influences come in, but you're not talking to yourself to say what works for me.
Right.
What makes me able to function and go ahead and get the things that I want to do, or do the things that I want to do, without all these outside influences. So that's
I
basically
told
what it
you.
was.
I told you, philosopher, but he's gonna like. My brother. Before we close it out, I'd be remiss not to take you down a quick rapid fire nerdy
Oh yeah, let's do it.
Q&A. I just want to hear some stuff, and then I want to give you a chance to promote Moon Knight. You into it or not?
Interesting thing. So my girl, I don't know if you've seen her stuff. She's the Blurred Girl. She's actually doing a show right now as we speak. She's downstairs doing her Twitch show, which is hilarious.
Wait, no, I haven't. I gotta check it out.
Yeah. I'll definitely, yeah. So she does a lot of press work. Like, she's interviewed a whole bunch of people. She's interviewed Chris Helmsworth, Benedict Cumberbatch. Like, she was on the red carpet for Black Panther, interviewed everybody. And
Wow.
the interesting thing is, so we get a lot of stuff before they come out.
Mhm.
And I'm not going to say from who, but I got a chance to see some of the new one, what you just mentioned. Just, I got a chance to see a little bit of it. I'm ready for it. It looked very interesting. I don't know how they're going to make it connect to the MCU, but I'm here for it. It looked interesting so far.
All right.
So we'll see what happens.
Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness.
Oh, that's happening. I can't wait. I can't wait. No. So much is going to be revealed. Listen, what got me was when you heard Professor X say, "I guess
Yes.
we should tell him the truth," and I was like, "Oh, we got Picard back up in this piece as Professor X. Let's go. I'm down for it. We got the Illuminati happening. Like, let's go."
It's everyone from our generation's dream, man, to see this stuff
Yep.
playing out. That's why even when the
Yep.
movie bombs, or actually, like a movie like Eternals, maybe not the best MCU movie, but I still enjoyed it. I was like, oh,
Me
here's a bunch of
too.
people I would never see played out otherwise.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it for what it was.
Last one in regards to Spider-Man. You've seen No Way Home, I assume.
Mhm.
Now, do you actually believe that they're going to keep it where no one remembers Peter? Or do you think within the last 3 movies they have lined up for the contract, they're just going to bring it? Because, Feige said no more large sagas. We're doing mini arcs, and mini arcs will be more relevant. Do you
Yeah.
think at the end of the 3 movies that, what is this kid's name? Not Tobey Maguire,
Tom Holland.
Tom Holland.
Yeah.
Do you think at the end of that we see his death? Or do we see Miles Morales take on the mantle, which I think is unlikely? Or do you think we finally get Spidey out of the MCU?
I think a number of things are going to happen now. Here's the thing: when I'm a fan of a thing, I usually tend to look at the business side of stuff. This just because it's really messed up. But a lot of the times, the reason why stories fall short is because of business.
Right.
Reason why, like, we see certain things, we're like, man, why didn't they do that? It's because of contracts, money, and all kinds of other shit. So it's like, the way I'm seeing it is, I think they're going to give Spider-Man They're gonna give the Tom Holland Spider-Man because I think he's already signed on for some more movies.
Yeah, three more. Three more.
So if we got three more, we're gonna see the Venom arc because now the symbiote is in the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
We're going to see. I think we're going to see some more Green Goblin.
Right.
Throughout the entire Tom Holland arc, we haven't seen Norman Osborn or anybody else
Correct.
come into play. I think a lot of these things are going to happen, but I think the catalyst is going to be in the Multiverse of Madness, where Marvel has this thing where they retcon everything by bringing universes together. They always do this.
Yes. Yeah.
This is the reason why you got Peter Parker and Miles Morales running around,
Yeah.
together fighting
Yeah.
crime because
Yeah.
the universe is mended together. So it's like,
Yeah.
all right, that other Spidey, the Ultimate Spidey, is dead, but regular Peter Parker from the original Earth is still here.
Yeah. Shout
So
out
I
to John
mean,
Strickman, yeah.
yeah, man, I'm saying, like, I think that's what they're going to end up doing. I thought it was a bad move for them to make them for. It's not even so much to forget Peter Parker, but the existence of Spider-Man.
Right.
Because there were very specific moments in the MCU. Now, there's one theory that I've been following, which I think is going to end up happening. One theory is that the X-Men and Charles Xavier has always been there
Yeah, I've heard this. Yeah. Yeah. I like
because of the fact that you've had all these things that happened with Peter Parker and everybody forgetting everything. They have just been omitted from the timeline because of particular things that happened, but they were always there.
right.
And so I think they may go that route. I mean, there's so much that's going to go into this. You have the events that happen in Loki.
Yes.
You have, all of these things. I think they're going to come together in between Multiverse of Madness and Thor: Love and Thunder.
Yeah.
I
Looming
think,
in the background. Yeah.
yeah, I think we're gonna get a lot of that stuff. And the thing about Love and Thunder, and especially with the Guardians of the Galaxy shows us all of the celestial stuff and all of the outer space stuff that we don't necessarily see in the regular Marvel universe. But I think that's their opportunity to go ahead and bring all that stuff through. So I think, and me being a big Spider-Man fan, I love Peter Parker growing up, but I love Miles Morales even more.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty excited to see what they get ready to do with it. I'm looking forward to, Across the Spider-Verse, but I'm gonna need for them to do a live action Miles Morales because they introduced it in the first Tom Holland Spider-Man movie where
They showed
Donald
it.
Glover played
Yep.
Prowler
Yeah.
and talked about his nephew Miles, and I'm like, come on, son. Like,
We need that.
we need that. We need to make that happen.
The crazy thing is, I just want to stage an intervention for Sony and be like, let's keep it real. Your most successful property was your video game division. You can't make consoles. You pulling this character back into universe. We know what you're gonna do with it. You're gonna botch it. The nature of a thing is the nature of a thing. But the most important thing, Chuck, is you have to remember not the Celestials, not Thanos, not the events of the snap. There is one huge event looming in the background like a beautiful crescent moon. Motherfucking Blade is coming to the MCU.
If I don't get an actual cameo
From Wesley?
from no, not well, you know what? Give me Wesley, but also give me Mahershala Ali, and I want them to be in the same realm, but I need to see it in the Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. Because you teased this motherfucker in Eternals, and all we heard was his voice. Nah, son, we ain't finna do that. No, you need to show me your man's in his full glory.
Right. Yo, they're really playing this.
Yo,
They're playing it really close to the chest. I've seen them do this before, but I'm surprised with a character like Blade. But I was trying to explain it to someone, man. You don't understand what the Blade property is, and they won't ever give him his flowers. But I think Kevin Feige might one day. Blade, the movie, the first one with Wesley Snipes, saved comic book movies.
yes,
Period.
it was the first. It was the first successful comic book movie based on a Marvel character. No
Yeah.
one acknowledges that. People are still fighting over it in 2022 when all the facts are still there.
Yeah.
It's like talking to people who, debate this is like talking to people in the GOP. Like this doesn't make any sense, bro.
It's not adding up.
Like It's not adding up, man. Your argument, just say you don't like the shit. That's what I'm a big fan of. It's like I said before, just say that. You don't like black people. You don't like the thing. Just tell me that. Don't sit here and give me all these bullshit alternative facts.
Oh
Just
man.
say you don't like them. Like, just stop.
Billy,
You know?
it's so multi-layered, man. I had a conversation with someone who used to be a close friend, but we were talking about Miles Morales, and he was like, well, what's the deal with Miles Morales? And it was the way he hung on to his last name. And I was like, wait, you have an issue with the fact that Miles is Black Tino? Like, like, is that the issue? And this was a brother too. So I'm
Yeah.
like, what's the issue there? But people just
Yeah.
need to, in certain instances, let's let the medium be fun. Chuck, my man, thank you so much for coming on here, man. I was extremely worried I was going to be super nervous because, I
Oh,
look
come
up to you,
on,
man.
man.
You one of the OG heroes,
Oh,
man. I
dude, don't
appreciate
even
you.
say that, man. I've always loved you. I was so super excited when Big Cat hit me up and told me, he's like, "Yo, Steve's trying to get in contact with you." I was like, "Yeah, give him my number." That's the reason why when you text me, I realized I didn't have your new number saved in. And you said it was Steve. Now there's another person called Steve that I haven't spoken to in years, and there's a reason why I haven't spoken to him in years. So when he hit me up, I was like, wait, what Steve am I talking to? Like,
I want you to enter the room as Dream, but I've been trying to divorce myself more and more.
I got you, and I feel you because of that. I feel you. No, I hear you. But I was like, but with the moment you said it, I was like, oh yeah, hell yeah, come on, son. I got you. Come on.
I appreciate you, and tell the people where they can find you. Anything you want to promote before we shut it down.
I am on both Twitter and Instagram is where I live. I do have a Facebook, but Facebook, no. We you can find me at bounce_comic on both Twitter and Instagram. And you can order. I do have to change this on the Gumroad site, but you can go to gumroad.com, the bouncer, and you will see all of my comics. I do have all the digital versions available. Unfortunately, I have sold out all the physical copies.
Mm.
So I will get some more later, probably sometime during the spring. But yeah, you can order all of them. I have the entire collection. There's 3 volumes. You can order them each individually, or you can get a bundle which has all of them in there. And they're all digital. You can read them on your phone, read them on your computer, read them on your iPad. Just go through it. My suggestion is to just take your best bottle of bourbon, sit back, get on your lazy couch, and just read and have a laugh. That's the reason why I made it on a Sunday afternoon. That's it.
That's right,
Just be
man.
lazy that day and just do it.
Also binge it and also support the brother. He does great stills, man. If you're looking for work, I saw that on your if you're looking for personalized stuff, hit him up on the IG, and I'm gonna commission something myself. Chuck, I appreciate you, my brother. Send my love to wifey, man. I'm gonna let you go, man, and I'll see you soon, brother.
Definitely, man. Same here, brother. Love you, man.
Love you too, man. Peace.
All right, peace,
folks. Another episode of Conversations That Matter, man. I know that you guys stuck through that. That was a longer one than we normally do, but the man's time is valuable, and I was grateful to have him. I'm going to shut it down, but I want to give a shout out to everyone that stuck around in Green Room, Carmen, Old Pony Bex, and D-Love. Shout out to everyone that's still over on Twitch. I appreciate you. I will be back at 10 o'clock, I believe. I'm going to check my messages. We should be having an episode of Spy on a Date. We'll see if the contestants are still into it. It's your boy Steve, real name, no gimmicks. Peace out.